I chose this dish tonight because it's one of my family's favorites. So I give to you guys one of my favorites too, Fettuccine Alfredo. Magnificent, beautiful ingredients that are going to create magic in our bellies and that we are going to absolutely love. There is only 6 ingredients in this beautiful, magnificent concoction of Alfredo sauce. Let's take a look. The first ingredient we're going to be using here is olive oil. I use extra virgin. It seems to give off a little bit of a better flavor to the food. You can use other oils to saute with. Certainly go ahead and do that if you don't have it at home, but I incorporate this into the flavor of the sauce, so it's definitely recommended. Up on the deck is going to be 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. We're going to use this to make the sauce nice and thick. We want to try to find heavy whipping cream if you can. If you can't find heavy whipping cream, go ahead and use the regular whipping cream and you'll just have to reduce it down a little bit. No good recipe would be complete without butter. The all-wholesome, artery-clogging ingredient that makes things wonderful. I'm going to use about a stick, maybe a stick and a half. The cheese that we're going to be using tonight carries a lot of salt, so you want to find butter that is unsalted, and we'll control that at the end to taste. So we're going to be using 2 kinds of cheeses tonight. I've opted to use Romano and Parmesan. Just like most people who make this recipe, that's what you're going to find. I'm using a 50-50 split of 3/4 of a cup of Parmesan and 3/4 of a cup of Romano. The Romano cheese gives it a little bit more of a creamy texture due to the fact that it's from a goat cheese. So if your family doesn't like Romano cheese, just use Parmesan. The essential ingredient to any Italian recipe, fresh garlic. You can get fresh garlic, please don't use the chop jar. Get some fresh garlic, take the time to chop it. It'll really increase the flavor of this dish. You're going to need about a pound of fettuccine noodle. I've chosen to use Barilla because it's readily available at my store and easy to acquire. So this is what we go with in my family. Please feel free to find what you can and source the best ingredient as far as fettuccine. You're going to need salt and pepper to create this dish. I use cracked pepper and kosher salt. That's just my preference. If you don't have the cracked pepper or the crushed salt, use regular pepper and salt. It will work in the dish. What? The ingredients to the right? You saw the ingredients to the right, didn't you? Okay, well these are the optional ingredients. If you don't want to use them, please feel free to just skip to step 2 on the cooking process. The 2 optional ingredients I'm using are white wine. I'm using a Chardonnay and a shallot. White wine, I use it because it increases the flavor in your palate. I definitely would recommend putting 1/3 of a cup, and I'll show you how that's done here shortly. The second optional ingredient we have tonight is called a shallot. I think it's a half between a garlic and an onion. Now that all the explaining stuff's done, this is my favorite part. You know what time it is. It's time to start our pan! Alright, it's time to put in the work. This is where the deed gets done. This is where the magic happens and everyone gets excited. Follow along and we're going to make some of the best Alfredo ever. Starting off, I chose this pan because it has a flat walled edge. It doesn't make a mess when I stir. It also has a large bottom, which is going to allow the flame's temperature to keep an even heat, which you'll see why is important shortly. So I've got my water preparing right now. I've got a high flame underneath and the water's at a rolling boil. Since water that's not salted cooks at a completely different temperature, I'm going to put some kosher salt into the pot as it's coming to a boil and we're preparing the sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and set my temperature to low now. Start the base of the sauce with our olive oil. I'm going to probably put 3 tablespoons. I'll give you a shot of the pan here. Now that we've got this beautiful oil in the pan, I'm going to take my 2.5 tablespoons or so of shallot and go ahead and place it into the pan. We're going to saute this off at a low heat to incorporate that flavor of that shallot into that olive oil. Betsy's now starting to sing for us. You can see I'm starting to get that little bubble, so I'll watch my temperature, especially since I'm dealing with the cast iron pan here. You want to pay attention when you're cooking to how something looks, but you want to use your ears too. I can tell when my pans sing to me and when they're at the right temperature by the sound they're making. By using all of those things, I think that you guys are going to step your game up to another level, and you're going to find that your food just comes out absolutely incredible. We're going to go ahead and put in some garlic here and make this absolutely yummy. So I'm about to put the garlic in right now. One of the things I want to teach you guys a little trick that I picked up. I always wondered how much should I put in this recipe or that recipe when making. I know I'm using 2 cups of cream, so I asked myself how much garlic would I use in each cup of cream. I figured that I would use 1.5 cloves per cup of cream. So I went ahead and put 3 cloves of garlic and chopped them up as fine as possible. We're going to go ahead and put in that garlic now. We'll bring it around into that heat, dropping it and bringing it back to the center so she can caramelize. Take your time, man. It's not a rush here. Make sure when you're cooking, when your pans, keep your sidewall clean. If you leave something off to the side, as that pan gains in heat there, it's just going to burn it and incorporate a really bad flavor. It comes down to focusing and really just being here with the pan. We're going to go ahead and add the butter now. I'm using 6 tablespoons of butter to make my recipe. Feel free to adjust as you've tasted your first time making it. So we're going to add this straight into the pan. Taking our time here. We want to make sure that this butter incorporates slowly. We don't want the butter to get too hot. I'm going to use the butter to cool my pan down and control my temperature. Butter that I've added is unsalted. I like to have a level of control in my life, and salt's one of them. I want to build this sauce on a low heat, not quite a boil, but riding that line of a boil. Now while we let that butter settle, we're going to go ahead and get that second optional ingredient for you ready. Now you don't have to put this in, but I'm going to show you what it is. On to optional ingredient number 2. Optional ingredient number 2 is white wine. I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup to my pan. Now as I poured the wine in, I want you to notice it does evaporate out. The bubbles have increased. It's not that I've increased the heat. The alcohol is actually evaporating out due to the fact that it has a lower boiling point. Don't worry, you're not going to be giving your family any kind of alcohol if you choose to participate in this portion of the step. Now's the time to go ahead and begin incorporating cream. We're bringing this in together. Nothing's coming to a boil. And we'll go ahead and let these two get married together with all their love. The part we begin to start to build this sauce, guys, we want to pay attention here. We can bring our heat up, that's fine. What you don't want to happen is this sauce to boil. We're going to develop the sauce with cheese. We're going to bring this milk and reduce this down a little bit right now. Once we've got the cream in and the butter's been incorporated with the cream, we're going to go ahead and leave our temperature at about a medium-low and bring this up to almost a boil before we start to put in any kind of cheese. At this point, you may want to go ahead and crack in a little bit of cracked pepper. Now's a really good time to go ahead and put in our noodles. The sauce is looking really great right here. What I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this, is I've got 2 egg yolks. I'm using 1 egg yolk per cup of cream. I'm using 2 cups of cream, so I'm going to use 2 egg yolks. I'll go ahead and whisk those up a little bit. The reason we've also kept this sauce low, we don't want this to cook when I put it into the pan. We're going to want to pour and incorporate this in a slow type fashion, slowly pouring in, whisking it in quickly so it doesn't have time to incorporate into an egg yolk. Just not letting it build particles, we want it to become part of the sauce. We'll get the rest of that goodness in there. Now I guess the real question is, what came first? Alfredo sauce, the chicken, or the egg? Maybe they all came together. They seem to go that way pretty good. You can see that by adding that egg texture to my sauce here, we're getting that thickening effect that we want, and we haven't even got to the cheese yet. Wow, this is looking really, really good. Man, we have outdone ourselves this time, guys. The incorporations came down great. We're looking at almost the halfway point. We wanted to bring that 2 cups of cream down to about maybe 1.25 cups, so we're reducing it down to almost half. I'm just about there. We're going to go ahead and get ready to incorporate our cheese and finish this dish off. I'm adding in the Parmesan cheese. Again, my temperature, I'm just going to fold this in and let the sauce do the work. Let that cheese and the sauce become one. I'm also going to add in the Romano at this time. Oh man, this is just looking incredible. Wow. We're going to let this just boil and heat down a little bit longer until that cheese melts and becomes part of the sauce, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. This is where you really want to drop to a low. Cheese tends to want to burn. This is where it's going to want to stick to your sidewalls and burn. You're going to have to be dealing. For now, we're going to let this cheese and this sauce hang out together and become friends before they meet our belly. This is your cheese drill, Sergeant, people. Don't let that cheese burn. Seriously though, pay attention to the pan, man. All that work will go to waste if you don't. Now as I pull, I can see the bottom of my pan. That's when I start to know a sauce is done. How much time that it takes for that sauce to come back tells me where I'm at. Okay, my timer just went off. My noodles are perfectly cooked. Sauce is just about ready. I'm gonna take these last few moments while those noodles are still in the hot water, and I'm gonna go ahead and season this up. I use kosher salt, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit at a time, and I'm gonna taste. Again, we're reverting back to rule number 1 that we started in the last episode, always tasting our food. If it's for my family, I'm gonna taste it. Wow. Wow is all I can say. I can't wait for you guys to try this. I'm gonna add just a little bit more salt. And again, this is what the importance of tasting is. I can add, I can't take away. As we place the right amount of salt in and everything's tasting great on our palate, and honestly, I could serve the sauce this way, but let's just finish it off. I'm gonna go ahead and add another hit of that cracked pepper. Looks like we're going to a new cracker next episode. Once the pepper's stirred in and the sauce is ready to go, it's time to add those noodles. My taste is phenomenal. Let me get one last try of this bad boy. Oh man. Oh man, guys. That there is something to be said. I'm going to go ahead and drop the flame all the way off now that I have the texture I want. You can see it takes about a second to come back to fall in between. Let's put some noodles in it. We've made enough sauce to cover 1 pound of noodles. I'm going to go directly from the pan because that starch water is going to help to bind those noodles to the sauce. I know a lot of us have had spaghetti or sauce that we've eaten and it all falls to the bottom of the plate. The water that's on this is highly starched and is going to allow this sauce to stick to my pasta. This should incorporate all of that noodles in there with that sauce so it gets a chance to set up. And you can see the sauce is going to coat this really well. And this just is incredible, guys. I give to you Fettuccine Alfredo. You made it through the fire. You're here with me. I know that you have something amazing on your counter that your family's gonna love. I'll see you guys on the next week's episode.